Coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason and Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network. And wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Friday morning. A feel-good football Friday. A feel-good wild card weekend Friday. There's playoff games all over the place. Kicked off with Notre Dame and Penn State last night. Really entertaining game. It's funny, we got into the Drew Allar conversation, and then BT and Sal got into that, and boy, he was the story last night. And I know these guys are getting paid now, and I understand, but you couldn't look at that kid and not feel terrible for him throwing that interception when he did, and he claimed he was trying to throw it in the dirt. Did not. Great play by the Notre Dame defender. They kicked the field goal, and they're moving on to the national championship game. And if you're the college football playoff and you say, man, you know, it would be great if we get Notre Dame in the national championship game. Well, you got them. And, of course, wild card weekend in the NFL. Can't wait for that. One of the best weekends of football of the year. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, Jay. That was some game last night, and the last 10 minutes of that game basically was unreal. And it was a great football game because both teams really tried to run the ball. It seems like they were trying to protect their quarterbacks from the pass rush to the opposing team and the blitzes and things of that nature. And you hit on it. I mean, these players get paid now, so now they're open, in my eyes anyway, to some criticism. It doesn't have to be overly severe like we would do with a professional football player, but this is like minor league football. It's college. It was great. It had everything that you wanted. You have two storied institutions, two storied football programs, coaches like Marcus Freeman being celebrated. And I think James Franklin is really under the microscope because he's got to win these games.
Yeah.
And, I know Penn State fans are probably a little bit frustrated and annoyed and very disappointed this morning based on the performance of Drew Allers. And you're right. We sat here. We talked about him yesterday. He has all the size. He's got the arm strength. He's got everything. But, first of all, I don't like his explanation that he was trying to throw it away. That you don't throw it away, 15 to 17 yards down the field.
Well, he said he was trying to dirt it at the wide receiver's feet. That's what he said.
He could just get it across the line of scrimmage and just throw it into the ground. But that's a bad decision. And listening to the announcers, I thought Sean McDonough was great at the end of this game. He was unbelievable. But they were talking about how they trust Drew Allers, and I would trust Drew Allers too. But unfortunately for him, maybe this is the game, and that's the situation that tells him, go back to Penn State. No matter what the Giants say to you, just go back to Penn State, play another year. I'm sure they paid you. That's why your backup quarterback went to Missouri in the transfer portal. I can't see him coming out now. And, that was just an absolute disaster. Believe me, my heart broke for that kid because being in that situation is just, everybody's going to be talking about you today, just like we started out with him today.
Sure.
As opposed to really focusing in on, how good these defenses were last night and how hard they made it. And one big play by Notre Dame ends up as a touchdown, and it kind of like opened the game a little bit, but both teams were punting late in this game.
Yeah, and if I could patent one of my phrases, it would be the big decisions in your life make themselves. Like something happens when you're confronted with a big decision. Something happens in your life that says, all right, this is the way I got to go. And Drew Allar throwing that interception last night is the moment that said, I got to stay in school. Like I can't, well, I am not going to come out after that. I'm not ready. He did not look good the entire night, really. The most success that they had was on the ground. I mean, it was just like he's 20 years old. That we talked about.
Go back to school.
Yeah,
go back to school.
Go
and
play,
and maybe get a national championship next year, and you'll have a leg up on everybody else. And the thing that I was thinking about last night, just watching him, was just that he looks skittish. And sometimes these coaches, they got to get a guy into the game. And just like Josh Allen would always tell Brian Daboll, I need a hit. Maybe he's got to get a hit. Maybe he just needs some, easy completions, because that seems to be the kind of the prevailing thought when you watch these games with young quarterbacks. Get them easy completions, whether they're wide receiver screens behind the line of scrimmage, tight end delays over the ball, little plays like that should be rather simple to make. But when you're playing against good defenses, and the pressure is there and they're going to be on you, and quite frankly, Notre Dame was missing two of their top offensive linemen. So Riley Leonard was under constant pressure. That defensive line for Penn State is the real deal. But, he stayed in there. He hung in there. it was just, I don't know. It was a great football game. The last 10 minutes were totally compelling. I was in it to the end. And I like you, and I think most people out there, if you had no skin in the game, if you will, probably really felt disappointment for Drew Allars.
Yeah, I didn't bet the game. I didn't. If I had to root for one or the other, I mean, if you're not a fan of Penn State or Notre Dame, it's hard to like either one of those programs.
You're right.
But I would say that I would lean towards liking Notre Dame more than Penn State because I did work for the Pitt football program, and everybody at Pitt hates Penn State, so that was kind of put into my brain. But I still felt, I mean, he's 20 years old. He looks like a kid. He's just devastated. You know he's trying his ass off. It was just a massive mistake on a huge scale. And for people that are just, learning about college football, putting that game on, hearing about him being a prospect, and then you see that and the game ends that way, like now that's attached to his name. But, sometimes you need that moment to rise up. You need to have that real negativity to become the best version of yourself.
He is going to get hammered. And, I'm assuming because of this nil situation and because his backup left to go to Missouri, and I guarantee you he got paid a nice sum of money to go to Missouri.
Of course.
That Penn State had made an offer to Drew Allars to stay. And to me, that's one of the reasons why the backup leaves, because he knows in his heart that Drew Allars is not leaving regardless.
You're adding an S to it. It's Drew Allar.
Allard.
Yeah.
Just because there's no way that he is going to say to James Franklin, I'm leaving, coach. You might as well give the money to my backup. There's no way he's doing that. So I think if he would have had a great game last night, I think most people would have been excited for him and possibly being drafted in the first round of this year's draft. But I don't see it. I didn't see it last night. I didn't see it before last night. But again, he just needs another year, more games, bigger games. And the other thing, too, is James Franklin said something about Notre Dame, which I've long believed. And I totally believe in what James said. And he kind of just said it under his breath, and we kind of laughed at it. Notre Dame needs to be a part of a conference. I mean, you look at I know that they beat a lot of ranked teams, but the teams that they beat ranked, Army, Navy, I mean, come on. They're playing Stanford. I mean, I understand they played USC, who's got a down year this year. They played now in the college football playoff, they played great.
Well, yeah,
so it shows just they've earned their right to be there. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying overall for the fairness of college football, I think Notre Dame has to be a part of the Big Ten. They have to be a part of the Big Ten. And they already have a number of different rivalries within the Big Ten, but I just think that they should be playing, earlier in the year, bigger games than Indiana. Indiana had a great year. When they played Indiana, they were ranked 10th. And, they beat them after they lost to Northern Illinois. And to me, it's just like they should be a part of what everybody else is doing. And so I do agree with James Franklin in regards to Notre Dame not being an independent football team. I know that the rest of their sports are ACC.
Yep.
They don't belong in the ACC. They belong in the Big Ten.
Well, right, and that's always tricky with the TV deals and everything else, and we've seen so much of that movement. So, and it's been a conversation for a very long time about Notre Dame getting into a conference finally. So you've got Ohio State and Texas tonight, then you got Wild Card Weekend, and James Franklin is that guy that sort of is like Lamar Jackson going into this postseason where everything's been really, really good, won a lot of games, but when you go up against the best, you just don't get it done.
Or Ryan Day of the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Exactly. So he's got his opportunity tonight for sure. And there's a couple of those guys. Josh Allen is another one. I mean, I think both those guys are the ones that have the most pressure on them, and the eyes are going to be on them because of the MVP seasons that they have had, and they're also large favorites on Wild Card Weekend. And I'm telling you, if either one of those guys gets picked off, or either one of those teams gets picked off this weekend, it's just going to be an avalanche. Like anything that they did in the regular season will mean squat to the sports viewing world if they get picked off on Wild Card Weekend with these big spreads that they're favored by.
I always go back to that Kansas City, I think it was a divisional matchup, right, between the Chiefs and Buffalo.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, Josh Allen was a superhero in that game. He did everything humanly possible that a quarterback can do in a game. And with 13 seconds left in the game, they ended up losing the game.
Yep.
And they don't have college football clock rules, which are insane. And I don't know if this jumped out at you last night or not. The guy setting the football, the umpire setting the football last night, he's the guy that sets the football.
Sure.
The referee sets the official sets the football. That guy was like stopping Notre Dame from going. I guess because every time there is a substitution, you got to give the other team a chance to substitute with you. And the down clock was getting under 10 every time, and Notre Dame was just going to the line. And it was always under 10 minutes. I have 10 seconds on the down clock. And this guy was backing out. I was waiting for him to trip, and then seeing all the memes on social media and things of that nature. But that was driving me nuts last night. But I got to say, it was a great game played by a bunch of really hungry kids on both sides. It meant everything in the world to them, you could tell. And I love the fact that both teams ran the ball 42 times.
Yeah, I mean,
They
and that's
both
really
ran it 42 times. That's crazy.
Yeah, especially in this day and age of football, period, whether it's NFL or college football, you're seeing everybody throw a million times. It's almost like the three-point shot in NBA. I mean, it's just you throw the ball a million times. It's just what you do. So yeah, it was great. If every playoff game the rest of the weekend goes like that, you'll be absolutely thrilled. But I cannot, as we sit here today with Wild Card Weekend, predict any big upset. I can't see.
Well, remember, the Chargers are favored at Houston.
Exactly. But now last year, I don't think it's not the same Texans team. But last year, I remember coming in here on this very day and being so confident in Joe Flacco and the Cleveland Browns playing the Houston Texans.
And they got hammered.
They got crushed.
Yes.
But that Texans team was much better. The offense was much better. They've had so many issues. Obviously, the Tank Dell injury basically threw C.J. Stroud for a loop, and he hasn't been the same since. But I feel like that's just that the Chargers are going to win that game. No, now, I know that their schedule of all the playoff teams actually was the easiest in the NFL, but I still that's not. I can't see the Texans winning that game. I could see these teams covering. I could see the Broncos covering. I could see the Steelers covering, but I have no faith in either one of those teams winning.
Let me ask you a question: if Brandon Staley were the coach of the Chargers, who would win the game?
They wouldn't even be in the game. But
that's the point about a head coach in the NFL and how he can reconfigure a franchise. Now listen, he's got a top-end quarterback. There's no question about it. They don't have top-end wide receivers just yet. They have good players. They're getting there. They're mostly young players. They had to get rid of all that salary at that position in the offseason just so they could rebuild certain parts of their team, which I think they've done. And you're right. They have had one of the easier schedules, if not the easiest schedule in the NFL. But it just goes to show you what a coach with presence can do.
Well, yeah, we've been talking about it for a very long time.
I know he's awkward. I know he's a little bit off. He's a little bit Looney Tunes. But I love the fact that he's that way. And I love the fact that he was a former quarterback both in college and in the NFL, and he understands how to get a team prepared for a game. And that's why, he's a guy like Sean Payton is in Denver. Like, you can never count out the teams that are coached by great coaches. You just can't. Because they're going to have guys, they're going to have their teams ready. They're going to have their teams prepared. And I believe that both teams will be ready and prepared. And if we came in here and you told me that Buffalo won 27-24, I would not be shocked.
No.
Neither one of these teams going on the road, Denver or the Chargers, keeping these games relatively close or even winning these games, that would not shock me just simply because of who the coaches are.
Yeah, what I'm having a tough time with, though, is picking the Steelers to cover or not. Because there's so many of these old-school Ravens-Steelers things that are in my head about how Lamar Jackson struggled against the Steelers, not the last game that they played, but over the course of his career, and how these games are always close and all of these things. But what I've seen from the Pittsburgh Steelers the last couple of weeks, I mean, can you even use those examples in the past with this matchup? I hear T.J. Watt going crazy about that he's sick of losing in the first round and all of this stuff. I just think the Ravens, especially with the way their defense has essentially over the last number of weeks in the NFL has become the number one defense in football, and the way that the Steelers' offense has been, it's hard for me to see this game being close. But then again, Steelers-Ravens games can be like that.
They can be like that, and they know each other so well, and I think Lamar, the last time these two teams played, finally got it off his back, that he was able to win, and he win comfortably, and he adds to his very impressive season statistically. They become the number 3 seed after trailing the Pittsburgh Steelers for, 3/4 of the season?
Yeah, Steelers were 10-3, yeah.
I mean, my God. So they leapfrogged them. They played better towards the end of the season. The thing that you alluded to is the rivalry and the intensity of it, but also which Lamar are we going to get? We're going to get the hyped-up one, or are we going to get the new one, supposedly, that is going to try to stay, balanced the way he has been pretty much the entire year? He hasn't really had a bad game all year long.
Yeah, and if you're going to get the hyped-up one, I don't think it's going to be this week. I think that it's those other matchups and those, because I think everybody believes. I mean, they're a huge favorite in this game. Everybody believes that he's going to win this one and move on, and if he doesn't, it's just going to be kaboom. Everybody's going to go crazy on him.
Well, here's the other thing: if the Steelers go in there and get blasted and they lose, see a Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
and they're back on the quarterback treadmill again.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith, I watched a little bit of a press conference that he did, and I felt in watching it that he wanted to start Justin Fields. That's what I took out of it.
Really?
I did. It sounded to me, and reading into it, that he would have rather had Justin Fields start this game, but Mike Tomlin is going to stick with Russell Wilson. That's what it felt like.
That would be shocking to me if that
Well, they're
happened.
not going to do that.
I know that, but if you felt that way, I mean, what about, hey, Arthur Smith, can you get George Pickens' head screwed on straight?
Yeah.
How about that? Except let's get away from the quarterback for a second, and let's talk about a mercurial wide receiver. And this goes to show you how important they are and how destructive they can be. They're important when they're playing their game and they're making plays and they're doing all these great athletic things that position is capable of doing. But if you watch George Pickens the last 3 weeks of the season, I mean, maybe he's still hurt, maybe the hamstring is still bothering him. That could be an issue. But there's also the mental aspect of it where people are asking whether or not he and the quarterback are on the same page. And, he got a little bit annoyed when Russell basically said we weren't on the same page. And he probably took that as an insult, meaning that Russell was unable to read where he was going, or he made a couple route adjustments that he didn't agree with.
It's one of the biggest cliches in all of sports, though. I mean, we're just not on the same page today. It's not that much of an insult.
If you say, but you don't understand how people take things. That's
he takes it because he's nuts. He takes it that way,
So if you're dealing with a player, I've had situations where you're dealing with a player, and you have to understand how that player is going to take what you say. And if you're not aware of that, and Russell should be aware of that, because he's dealing with an individual that he spends every single day with. They're in the locker room every day. They're on the practice field. They're in the meeting rooms. He's got to be speaking to him left and right. I had a couple of players like that, and what I would do is I would try to create a personal relationship where I can go to him and I could talk to him off grid, and we can have conversations about what I expect, what he should expect from me, and just clear the air and make sure everybody's on the same page. I hope for the Steelers and their fans' sake, that's exactly what Russell Wilson's doing. That's why you go with a veteran quarterback, to make sure situations like this don't happen.
One of the biggest football Fridays of the year. Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. Of course, a feel-good Friday as well. We got Jerry Recco back in the building with us. We'll hear from him in just a couple of minutes.